Hi everyone, Autistic Guy with a Camera here. I'm a huge fan of The Karate Kid, well, the original version that is, and it remains one of my favorite 80s movies to date. Not only did it get my attention right from the title, but the universe it created is so neat and well done. The inspiration it gives me is incredible, and the follow-up series, Cobra Kai, is pretty much the only original YouTube series worth watching. So, what is it that gives me reason to believe that it's an awesome movie? Well, let's get started. Number 1, the setup. The setup for The Karate Kid is pretty relatable to many teenagers. It's about a kid named Daniel LaRusso with a single mom who moves to a new town when she gets a new job. Daniel adjusts to the new apartment and meets the maintenance guy, Mr. Miyagi, who comes off as a little odd. The setup for The Karate Kid is very relatable to many teenagers. It's about a kid named Daniel LaRusso with a single mom who moves to a new town when she gets a new job. Daniel adjusts to the new apartment and meets the maintenance guy, Mr. Miyagi, who comes off as a little odd but still likable, and the two get along fine. He then goes to a new school but doesn't quite fit in, meets a girl but then runs into her ex-boyfriend, Johnny Lawrence, who not only turns out to be a bully who messes with them a lot, but is also a black belt junior instructor at Cobra Kai, at the local karate dojo. I'll get more into them later. After several altercations with Johnny, Daniel then tries to get even and gets beat up, only to be saved by Mr. Miyagi, who as it turns out is a karate master. The two of them confront Cobra Kai, challenge him on even terms. Then, after training for months and bonding with each other, Daniel learns balance for his whole life through the lessons Miyagi gives him, not just to fight, and becomes a better person for it. He and Miyagi beat the Cobra Kai dojo after a very close match and win against the bullies who've been picking on him in the end. This is an excellent setup, and it gives a great coming-of-age to story where you confront bullies and they get what's coming to them. But that's just the story. Let's get into number 2, the characters. The characters in The Karate Kid are very well done, especially through all the little subtleties of their acting. To start out with, we have Daniel LaRusso, our main character, originally going to be called Daniel Weber. He's your typical teenager, not the most athletic to start with, but he mentioned he had taken karate at the YMCA before. He's pretty relatable, as he isn't the idealized, clean-cut teenage hero we usually get, especially these days where everyone has to be either perfect at things like a Mary Sue or a goofy character to be laughed at. Daniel tends to have a short temper and a bit of an ego, as we see when he gets annoyed when he doubts Miyagi's training methods, and when he attacks Johnny when he deliberately trips him up at the soccer match. There were even 2 deleted scenes where Daniel is further harassed by being tricked into sitting on a pie as a prank, and throws the rest of it onto Johnny's shirt. He can't resist a challenge, and often has a bit of a big mouth about things. But despite this, he's still a nice kid. Fun fact, the actor who played him, Ralph Macchio, was 22 when he played Daniel, who's supposed to be about 15, and he really didn't look it. His dad is gone, and was mentioned to have died when he was 8 in the Cobra Kai episode Different But Same. And so, that leaves him without a father figure to look up to or be taught by, which is partially what made him get so close to Mr. Miyagi. His struggles are very relatable to some kids, growing up without a father, having trouble fitting in, having trouble with bullies, having his first crush, and trying to balance his life out. He stands out among most teenage action heroes as he isn't quite perfect, and is very relatable to many teenagers who would have seen this movie in the 80s. We then go to Keisuke Miyagi, who I think is one of the best mentor figures in fiction. He comes off as this goofy, senile old guy who works as the maintenance man for South Seas Apartments when we first see him messing around trying to catch flies with chopsticks. He seems to be this quiet but friendly goof who's odd but helpful, like when he compliments Daniel on learning karate from a book and then later lends him some supplies for that goofy shower costume he wears to the Halloween dance. However, when Daniel gets in trouble and is almost beaten to a pulp, he leaps in and easily defeats 5 teenagers using a different style of karate that puts them out of action easily. This leads to a great scene where Daniel is too dazed to process what had happened, having been hit in the head at least twice, and thinks Spider-Man jumped in and saved him due to him bumping into a kid in a Spider-Man costume just a few minutes before. Mr. Miyagi is then revealed to have learned karate as part of his culture back home in Okinawa, where traditionally most young men learn karate from their fathers. He then helps Daniel by confronting John Kreese, the sensei of Cobra Kai, and negotiates a fight on even terms where Daniel could fight his bullies fairly and honorably as opposed to fighting them in Kreese's dojo, where he would have the advantage. His methods come off as unusual to Daniel, especially since they consist of waxing some old cars from Detroit, one of which was given to Daniel both in the movie and to Ralph Macchio in real life by the producer, sanding decks, washing windows, painting fences, all with very specific motions as opposed to what is usually thought of as karate training. He comes off as strict but kind and never mocks Daniel or messes with him during the training, although he doesn't explain why he's doing this. Eventually, Daniel gets annoyed and thinks he's been had. But then, Miyagi has him repeat the motions, and the look on Daniel's face when he realizes the muscle memory is a series of defensive moves, wax on, wax off, defending the chest and face, painting the fence, defending against upwards and downward attacks, and sanding the deck is defending against kicks. You can tell Miyagi is no con artist. Daniel then continues training and learns more about Miyagi, becoming good friends with him over time. But the most interesting scene with Miyagi comes later on in the movie when Daniel comes over to tell him he got his driver's license, and Miyagi's drunk, wearing his old uniform, singing an old Japanese song, and pouring a drink for himself, and another for his picture of his wife, an unborn child who both died in an internment camp. He is later revealed to have been an Allied soldier in World War II from the real-life 442nd Infantry Regiment, which had 14,000 soldiers, primarily Japanese Americans, and was the most decorated unit in the history of American wars, earning 9,486 Purple Hearts, 8 Presidential Unit citations, and 21 Medals of Honor. This gives more perspective to his character, as you see he went through some really rough stuff in his life, but still has his honor and pride, and really makes you feel for him. Especially his line where he says he's never been in a tournament before because he's used to fighting for his life, not trophies, and doesn't like the denotation of martial arts skills by wearing a belt. This all gives Mr. Miyagi a lot of character development and overall depth, making him one of the greatest characters in the movie. Especially so when you consider the beginning of the second film where he saves Johnny from being picked on by Kreese. He's a warrior who believes in honor above all things, and that is what makes him an excellent mentor. We then go to the villains of the movie, the Cobra Kai Dojo. These guys are the most memorable kind of villain with a name you're not likely to forget, which, roughly translated, means Club Cobra, or Cobra Organization in Japanese. We start with Johnny Lawrence, the first Cobra we see. He's a rich kid who used to date Allie Mills, Daniel's love interest, and has won several All-Valley tournaments in the past. Daniel comes off as confrontational and blunt, like when he tries to talk to Allie, gets annoyed when she drowns out with the radio, and later busts it when she turns it up, leading to a fight where he beats up Daniel. Interestingly, the show Cobra Kai elaborates on his character and mentions this was shortly after they had a fight and Johnny thought Daniel was butting in. Cobra Kai also brings up Johnny's stepfather, Sid Lawrence, putting his behavior in perspective by revealing Sid was constantly belittled his interests and barely paid attention when Johnny was bullied himself. This made Sid an almost absent father figure, leaving Johnny to seek out a new father figure in John Kreese, who gave him more attention than Sid ever gave him back at home, and even encouraged him in his own way. But back to the movie. Johnny tends to mock Daniel, like in the restaurant scene, where he laughs at Daniel crashing into the waiter, where Allie punches him for. You can tell he thinks Daniel's butting in, but he still has respect for him as a fighter. And nowhere is that more obvious than in the end of the movie, where Kreese tells him to sweep kick Daniel's injured leg, which is cheating, and Johnny hesitates. You can tell he doesn't want to win dishonorably through cheating, and hesitates before Kreese threatens him. This leads to a disconnect with the new father figure, later cementing a split when he loses. You can also see he's a decent sport, as he not only compliments Daniel on winning, but actually hands him the first place trophy while everyone's celebrating. Fun fact, the beginning of the Karate Kid 2, opening on Kreese breaking his second place trophy and putting him in a chokehold, was meant to be the end of the first movie, but was removed to give it a more light-hearted ending. And that leads us to John Kreese, the possibly psychotic sensei of the Cobra Kai dojo. He's a war veteran and karate champion who won a variety of medals and was a captain in the Green Beret from 1970 to 1972. Chuck Norris was originally cast for the role, but he turned it down due to the fact it was a bad image of karate teachers. So, Martin Kove got the role, and he was excellent at it. Sure, he's a little over the top, but he's a very interesting villain, especially in Cobra Kai Season 2, when you see a more manipulative edge of his character. Kreese teaches a rougher, more militaristic style of karate than Miyagi, and teaches students roughly, like when he knocks over this one kid when he bows and tells him, "Never lower your eye to an enemy." He doesn't have any qualms against cheating or dishonorable conduct, since he encouraged Bobby to break Daniel's leg in the tournament, and then tries to make Johnny focus on the resulting injury in the final round. He also seems to be racist towards Asian people in the way he regards Miyagi, and even calls him a slope in the beginning in the second movie. In said scene, he then fights Miyagi, who ducks out of the way and makes him slice up his hands by dodging and making him punch out 2 car windows, then repeats his own mantra back to him before pretending to punch him in the face and tweaking his nose as a joke, saying that for a man with no forgiveness, living is a worse punishment than death. This makes him an interesting villain with at least some motivation for why he behaves like this. Given everything he's gone through in the war and his rough behavior. Although it's also possibly breathed in too much Agent Orange in Vietnam. You never know. And that is why The Karate Kid is awesome. It's a great coming-of-age film that really sticks with you and has some great lessons to teach. It's so successful it had 2 sequels, a spin-off, a cartoon show, a video game, various types of merchandise, and even a follow-up series, Cobra Kai, which I highly recommend for fans of the movie. Probably one of the greatest sports film ever made, and definitely one that stuck with me through the years. This is Autistic Opinions, and I'm signing off now. Just remember, karate is not just for balance, not just for fighting, but for your whole life. Signing off.